There's no getting around it. The full moon in Taurus on November the 8th is a whopper, and probably the toughest astro event of the year. The Sun is at 16 degrees Scorpio, and it's grouped with Venus, Mercury, and the South Node, also in Scorpio. This makes it a very talky full moon, but the conversation might be held in secret, or behind closed doors, or in your head. It could be a conversation held in silence, or the last word, the final call, or an information download that blows your mind. The South Node here can bring out ancestral stories, family skeletons, paternity suits, and big financial secrets. Opposite, the moon is 16 degrees Taurus, with the North Node, and that means it's an eclipse, a big one. It's visible from East Asia, Korea, Japan and China, New Zealand, and the east coast of Australia where we've had flooding ripping through. It's also visible from the northwest coast of America and Canada, most of South America, and parts of northern and eastern Europe, including Moscow. Eclipses flip the table, reveal a new path and close off another. What makes this one even more unstable is Uranus is bang on the moon, literally dragging the eclipse with a revolutionary burst, only to get its wings clipped by Saturn up here in Aquarius. Saturn's squaring the Sun and Moon, so it's a T-square, and this makes Uranus want to do this. If this was tarot, we'd have the Sun, Venus, and Mercury opposite the Moon and Uranus. The card bridging them is Saturn, the devil. Temptation, loss, betrayal, an inverted sense of priorities that has you chained up to something. The Sun group is kind of talking about self-worth, having abundance, being seen in a truthful light. But what's coming into it, the Fool and the Moon, is reckless, is shady, it's naive and gullible. And that's where Saturn the devil is putting in the consequence. This next move makes it dangerous to leap into the unknown, and yet there's a feeling that you're ready to jump. Saturn here is the skipped step, and what gets uncovered in this moon phase carries a responsibility, a consequence, and some hefty restriction. Air signs, Libra, Gemini and Aquarius, might get lucky with Saturn's help, or even some protection. Gemini, Sun, Moon or Rising sign will also be revisiting old skills and plans, learning something new or taking on a new role. Earth signs will also find themselves thrust into a new position. Particularly with Taurus, there might be confusion about the details, the legalities or the ethics, and there's a bit of a whistleblower theme for you Earth signs. Where it's really forcing the issue is on the fixed signs, Taurus, Scorp, Aquarius, and over here Leo. Issues of self-worth, integrity, finance, and promises made have now reached a point where patience has run out. There's something coming from outside of you that's reflecting your own frustrations, feelings that haven't settled or been resolved yet. T-squares set up a really conflicting battle of energies. These two opposite are vying for the same space. The South Node is bringing up issues from the past, and Uranus here is like a turbo leaf blower, blowing out all the debris through the back so that we can find a way to move forward. At the same time, Saturn here is driving a wedge through these two jostling for position. And this puts a real test on authority. These guys want you to own your own authority, break free, find independence. But here the external authority wants to break up that little party. It's a tough look back at what we've been consuming. And it's also a strike out for independence. Of course, it doesn't help that Neptune over here in Pisces is being squared by Mars, who's now turned retrograde in Gemini. Mars is staying retrograde until January next year, and it's not out of Gemini until March. It squares Neptune 3 times in that journey. This makes your actions and your plans feel like you're throwing around a sock full of custard. It leaves the door open, literally, to security issues, data theft, poor boundaries, and opportunistic deception. It's hard to protect and defend what you can't see, but trusting your hunches, checking your reactions, and delaying impulsive gratification is probably the best way to deal with this, especially while an eclipse is flipping the tables. In the midst of all of this instability, we've got a little cosmic opportunity of its own, and that's asteroid goddesses Pallas and Lilith over here in Cancer, joined together. Lilith represents a wild, untamed and irrepressible part of feminine power, while Pallas is strategic and intelligent and a goddess of war. That they've linked up during all of this conflict and push-pull and confusion says that justice might be able to come through. And if it doesn't come through the courts, then it's karmic justice. There's a defiance and some really strategic thinking behind this. And in Cancer, it's about the protection of women and children, or the safety of women in the home. Lilith and Pallas are likely to bring people out on the streets, and this is relevant for the demonstrations in Iran, led by women about the safety of women. Lilith wants equality, and Pallas wants transparency, justice. The problem is, there's some radical pushback, potentially an authoritarian clampdown, and the conversation around women's issues disappearing into the background. That's why it's important that Lilith and Pallas are here, because any deception or betrayal or diminishment of that equality won't be easily forgotten. Mutable signs need to be extra careful about how you expose yourself and where details have become masked or fogged. It's even important to protect yourself psychically because you're very open and sensitive at the moment. Water signs, Scorpio, Pisces and Cancer, you guys might be able to wriggle out of some of this tension, even finding some justice with Pallas and Lilith here in Cancer. You might be really pushed to go your own way, as Lilith had to even cut off and exile from some of the responsibilities put on top of you. You also might have to pick up a useful skill or make contacts or use your knowledge. It's time to put your cards on the table. Lilith is prepared to go all the way. She's a real fighter, and that staunch resistance and strength she has is only turbo boosted by having the goddess Pallas there to really expose any injustice. At the last moon and the previous partial eclipse, we looked at the rise of the Uranian tyrant. And with this eclipse, that tyrant is out in full force. Martial law was declared in Russia. Kanye West has been dropped by everyone. And when Mars goes retrograde on the 31st of October, we could see him withdraw or step right back in some way because his sun is right in this Mars retro zone. Xi Jinping in China got himself elected another 5 years and became chairman. He publicly ousted some of his own party to get there and indicated that Taiwan is on the radar to be pulled into line. Something else to take note, Venus and Mercury in Scorpio can have you digging back through old bank balances and finding lost money, hidden stashes, strange investments. And if you've been investing in cryptocurrency, this is going to be a wild ride. Bitcoin and crypto seem to go on roller coaster crashes whenever there's an eclipse. And Bitcoin itself is linked to Uranus in Taurus. The Taurus full moon has some sense of things coming home to roost, of exposure happening where you least expect it, and a chance to step up and choose your own authority. One way or another, the tables are going to be flipped. So you're advised to be like Pallas, very prepared and strategic, and use intelligence rather than cloudy emotions, impulsive actions, or relying on the way things used to be. Taurus loves a comfort zone, but it is absolutely being shaken up at the moment. It's time to look at your values and stand true to that. At the end of the day, that's all any of us have. I'm Merryl, and this is my mystery school. Like, comment, share and subscribe. If you like this, check out my channel and look at my other videos, or contact me through my website, www.merrylkey.com. Blessed be.